Hello, my spooky people. This week, I am officially starting a new series on my channel called Secondhand Sewing. Shout out to my brother for helping me figure out that name. In this series, my goal is to really show you that it is accessible and fairly cheap to make your own clothing if you thrift and are just able to go out and buy secondhand materials like bed sheets and curtains and even offcuts from somebody else's project that they might have donated. I am usually able to find patterns for about 99 cents. I understand not everybody's able to find those, but even going to antique shops, I can find patterns for like under $5 and they're great, usually vintage. In this week's video for Secondhand Sewing, I am going to be making this pattern. This is a Butterick pattern from, I believe, the 70s. To me, it's got a 50s diner vibe to it, and I'm so into that. This pattern doesn't really have a specific date on the packet, which is usually how I figure out when it was made. This pattern did come with a single, very faded receipt from 1976, which is the only way I was able to start dating this. I did find a couple other dates online from a little bit before then, so I know it was at least purchased originally in 1976. I really adore the slim fit to this, and the zipper in the front I feel like is going to be really easy for me to put on and take off the dress and have a kind of low effort outfit. There are quite a few modifications that I'd like to make to this dress. Namely, I want to add batwing shapes to the collar, the cuffs, and even the bottom hem. I am obsessed with anything spooky, and I especially love bats, and the batwing shape is just so perfect. So let's go make my new diner dress. Okay, so the only way I was able to start dating this was by this very faded receipt from 1976. This pattern is also a size 22.5, so I'll be spending some time making mock-ups and getting the fit right. Before I started, I went ahead and transferred the pattern onto some wrapping paper so I can just jump right into making the adjustments. I also modified the collar, which all I did was trace that out and then add the batwing shape to the bottom edge. I did the same with the sleeve pattern as well, and because of the weird edge of the sleeves, I knew I'd need some kind of facing for that, so I went ahead and just traced the bottom edge of the sleeve with the batwing shape and made a facing piece. So now that that's all out of the way, I can start with the first modification. Like I said, this is a size 22.5, and I knew the bust is about 8 inches bigger than I am, so I'm going to start with taking about 2 inches off of the side from both patterns and see what that does for me. For my mock-ups, I'm focusing on the fit, and the bottom of the dress flares out past my hips, so I don't feel the need to do a full length just yet. I'm also pretty short, so I know I'll need to shorten the dress anyway, but that can happen later. Once the altered pattern is cut, I'll cut it out of a bedsheet and quickly put the mock-up together. I'm not doing the long darts in the back to save just a little bit of time here, but I am doing the boob darts and the ones on the shoulders. So mock-up number 1 is huge still. That's okay. This gives me a good idea of what I need to modify next, which is mostly just taking more width out of the sides. I'll make some more adjustments to the pattern, and then try another mock-up. I'm mostly worried about getting the side seams in the right place for now. It's still pretty big, so I'll take out another 2 inches from the sides, and if I need to add anything, I'll do so by adding strips of masking tape. Mock-up number 2, and we're getting pretty close already. I think I can now mess with the darts a little and at least get the boob darts in the right spot. I just need to move those up a little. The back dart, I can tell, won't need to be super thick, and I might need to add just a little bit of width back into the upper hip curve. It's a bit tight there, but ½ an inch should do wonderfully. I'll make those adjustments and then try again. I'm also going to go ahead and shorten the bottom hem to something a bit more reasonable. The pattern describes this as above the knee, so I'm aiming for that. I just held up the front pattern piece to my body and estimated how much I'd need to take off based on that. It ended up being about 6 inches. For this mock-up, I'm going to go ahead and do the full length. I'm hoping this will be the last mock-up, so I want to make sure I'm also happy with how long it will be. third mock-up, and I'm happy enough to move on. It all fits really well, and I'm happy with the length. Finally, I can make the actual garment. But first, I need to make 2 more pattern pieces. I'm going to modify the bottom hem of the dress on both the front and the back and just add the batwing shape. Then, to make the facing piece, I will tape another piece of wrapping paper to the back of the dress part and then cut them both out at the same time. Because I thrifted this fabric, I'm not entirely sure what it is I'm using to make this dress. The lack of finished edges tells me that this is probably an offcut someone donated, so before I do much else, I'm going to wash it, then do a burn test and iron it flat. The burn test told me this is actually a natural material. It ashed instead of melting, which is good news for me. Looking at the weave, it's also pretty open, so I'm hoping this will be nice, light, and breathable. With all of the prep done, I can cut out the dress after tracing all of the pattern pieces onto the fabric. I had to be pretty creative with pattern piece placement. I almost didn't have enough fabric, so I wasn't able to follow any grain lines like I'd normally try to do. I guess this is one of the dangers of thrifting. Alright, so starting the actual construction, I'm going to get the bottom hem of the dress done now because that seems like it's going to be the most annoying and I want to get it out of the way. I'm going to pin the facing pieces to the front and the back of the dress with the wrong sides facing out. I'll also go ahead and pin the darts. Tara really wanted to help out with this project and there were many snuggle breaks. With all of that pinned, I'll go ahead and sew the hem and the darts for each front and back piece. When I sew the darts, I'm making sure to leave long enough thread tails to tie them by hand later. Now I need to clip the seams around each point on the bottom hems to make sure that these turn out and curve correctly. I'm also tying off my darts at this step, and to do that and not make the darts pointy, I'm going to use the bobbin thread and ease the fabric very slightly, not to cause a wrinkle. Then I'll tie a knot and trim the thread. I'll go ahead and do a top stitch to the batwing edge of the front and back pieces. I'm trying to do this as close to the folded edge as I can so that that edge will stay as it is even after being washed. I'm using an awl to help pull the points through when the feed dogs of my machine can't quite grab the fabric and move it. And I was right, that was the most annoying part, and it took a long time for me to get through all of those points. So the next day I'm going to work on getting the side seams connected and the front middle seam from the bottom hem up to a mark below my waist. This opening is where the zipper will be, but for the ease of installing said zipper, I'm going to run a line of basting stitches up the full length, making sure this one has as long of stitch length as I can manage to take it out easier later on. For this garment, I decided to finish my seams by pinking them with my pinking shears. This is, in theory, supposed to help the fabric not fray and just be an easy way to finish them. I'll then press them flat. To help cut down on some of the bulk in the seams, I'm going to trim and pink the darts as well. Doing this to the back darts really helped them curve open like they're supposed to. Now I'm going to attempt an invisible zipper. This is always a hit or miss thing for me. I don't particularly enjoy installing zippers, but sometimes it's a necessary evil. So I have my center front seam pressed nice and flat, and then I'm going to lay my zipper over that, making sure to line up the center of the teeth with the seam, and then I'll pin it in place. I'm doing this now before my side seams are done for ease of access. Once that's pinned, I'll sew it down as close to the teeth as I can manage with my zipper foot, and then finally I can get the side seams closed along with the shoulders. I'll go ahead and remove that long basting stitch that's keeping this zipper closed. I don't like using a traditional seam ripper. I've damaged and destroyed way too many projects to trust those, so my awl once again comes in handy. Then I'll pink and press the side and shoulder seams. Next up is the sleeves. I'm going to do the batwing edge and facing to those as well, so I need to start with attaching the facing the same way I did with the dress. With the wrong sides facing together, I'll pin it along the bottom edge. I'm also going to go ahead and get the collar ready, so I'll pin that as well with wrong sides facing together. With those pinned, I can run a seam along those batwing edges. I'll then turn those out after clipping the seam allowance and then top stitch the batwing edges to set them. I'll go ahead and sew the side of the sleeves and pink them. I hate a floppy facing, so I'm going to hand sew the facings of the batwing edges down on both the sleeves and the bottom hem of the dress. I'm making sure to only grab 1 or 2 threads of the outer fabric so that this won't show on the other side. I'm using such large stitches overall that this really didn't take that long to do, but it's a finishing detail I'm very glad I did. Finally, I'm getting close to finishing this. Next, I need to attach the collar by sewing it to the neck of the dress. The collar facing has 3 pieces total with shoulder seams, so I'm going to get those small shoulder seams done now and then sew the outer edge with the rolled hem to be hand sewn later. With the facing prepped, I can sew it onto the neck to encase the seam allowance of the collar. I'll then run a top stitch along that line to set it, starting with the part that goes down the zipper a little and helps form a lapel of sorts. It was getting late, my camera didn't want to focus and neither did I. But all I need to do is get the sleeves attached to the dress and then I'm done. So I've got a gathering stitch on the shoulder of the sleeves and I'm going to insert them into the dress with the right sides facing together. I'll pin and ease the sleeves into the arm's eye and then sew it down. And once that's done, so is this dress! Oh my, this dress has no business being as cute as it is. None. None whatsoever. No right. Nada. Like, oh, it's so comfy. Ah! I am so happy with how this turned out. This collar is massive. It turned out so much bigger than I had thought it would, and I'm not complaining at all. It is so goofy and so out there, and I adore this. I am so proud of all of the work I put into this, doing all of those mock-ups and getting all of the size and fit and everything perfect. Make your own clothes. It's so worth it. Just make your own clothes. The only thing I really regret with this is it doesn't have any pockets. I was fully intending to put on the like applique pockets like on top here, but I kept looking at the pattern and I just was not super pleased with how that looked. I didn't think it would have translated super well to like the spooky vibe I was going for, so I just didn't do any pockets, and you know, I do kind of regret that a little bit. I try and put pockets into most things that I make just because pockets are nice. But this one I felt if I did a pocket and I actually put something in that pocket, it would pull the dress and make it pull and sit weird on me. And with how this is so fitted, I didn't think that would be a really good aesthetic to be walking around with like something pulling on my dress constantly, but that's fine. I can always put pockets on an outer layer, it's fine. I think this is a perfect dress for styling and adding onto it and just being an overall base for other outfits. I don't think the hem of the dress fully translates into Batwing super well, but you know what? It fits with the rest of the vibe and I am totally for that. Let me know what you thought in the comments. Go ahead and like this video if you liked it, subscribe for more, and if you made it this far, go ahead and comment with a ghost emoji, and I will see you in the next video. Bye! Lashes so long. You can fly away from the big sad.